tell me about this systemic slandering, because you and I both understand, and I mean, I would be more on the convinced side to your claim than most of the people tend to be. But a large part of urban India is not convinced with this systemic slandering question.
Right.
What is this systemic slander? How do I put a finger on it? How do I nail it down?
I don't think urban India will even understand or will ever be persuaded or convinced, because they themselves have bought into it and they are the ones to indulge in it. Okay. And this is largely because of the years of indoctrination, subtle indoctrination that they go through as part of the education system, the kind of nonsense that pop culture throws at them, and the kind of people who are celebrated as intelligentsia in the community, and the kind of books that are regularly published, and the normalization of, let's say, Hindu phobia and the Brahminization of Brahmin phobia, separating the Brahmin identity from the Hindu identity, separating the caste identity from the Hindu identity when it matters, and equating caste with Hinduism when it is convenient. So all of this has been going on, and I don't think it has not happened before. It has happened systematically. The foundation for which and the seeds for which were sown under Sri Jawaharlal Nehru. I won't call him Pandit because he was not, according to me. So that, let's say, the foundation of cultural Marxism, which was laid under his tenure, I think reached a charam sima, a peak of sorts, in 2000s. And I think that effectively contributed to the change that we saw in 2014. But I still don't think that it has abated, it has waned, it is only growing with each passing day. Because I don't think there is a systematic response or an institutional response that has come about to the nonsense that has been peddled for all these decades. Okay. And there, I think a significant amount of blame must lie not just at the society, but also at the doors of the MHRD ministry and the establishment, which doesn't think it is important for it to respond to this. Textbooks have not seen too much of a change.
What is it in textbooks that is a systematic slander to the Indic identity?
More than a systematic slander to the Indic identity, see, there are two ways of looking at it. One is to build a positive narrative, and the second is to go after the negative narrative. Okay. The positive narrative is to, first of all, let children know what is the concept of Bharat, where do we come from, what are its origins. And that entire discussion is muddled by this misplaced understanding of secularism. I don't think secularism as a concept is bad, but the manner in which it is understood and the manner in which it is interpreted in India is entirely antithetical to the indigenous identity. And that starts from the textbooks, and that goes on for the next 16 years until, and especially the moment you enter the portals of any humanities university or humanities department, it only increases in vitriol, it increases in its amount of bile that it spews against the indigenous identity. Okay. So textbooks is one reason. Second, an understanding of science is another reason, because we constantly speak of only history and social textbooks. But the fact that science is entirely seen as a Western idea, as a Western concept, as a Western import, where there is absolutely no contribution of India that is ever placed before students, what does it effectively do? On the history front, students are being told that you're a product of a defeated slave society. And on the science front, you're being told that you're boorish, you're savage, you're superstitious, you've never contributed to the concept of science. When it comes to civics, you're being effectively told that every institution that modern India has inherited, so to speak, is an institution that the Britishers have bequeathed to you. That's effectively the statement that's been given. So your sense of identity is gone. Your sense of self-esteem is gone. Your sense of political identity is gone. And your sense of self-esteem when it comes to your brain, which is to say your contribution to the global pool of thought on the scientific front and progress, is also gone. What do you think remains of your identity by the end of your schooling and your college? Nothing. So if anything survives, it is not because of the education system, but despite the education system. Okay, so that's effectively the level at which we all operate. So anyone who's managed to grow a filter thanks to his household training in Bharatiya customs, in our Sanskriti and our belief systems, is largely a product of that particular environment that he's grown up in, despite the kind of bile that he gets to encounter on a regular basis in the outside world. Okay, so we are the lucky few people, but I think we're also the minority in India.
Right. I think, and I've had a lot of discussions with people who generally tend to lean left enough to find the whole BJP phenomena, the whole Modi phenomena to make no sense to them. And I'm like, if it makes no sense to you, it's a personal problem. It's not, because listen, there are so many reasons that I can pinpoint, because it's not one. You have to give the devil its due. The fact that the majority is so overwhelming, not once more than twice, tells you that there's a certain part of India that this government seems to represent, right? And I was of the opinion that this government seems to represent some sort of a right-leaning kind of an idea until I met your friend Ashish Dhar. And Ashish really explained it very well to me. And he said, listen, there does not seem to be a right wing, there seems to be an indic wing. And then when I spoke to Kushal, he made it more clearer. He's like, listen, they're not very different. They're apples and they're pretty much the same thing, except one of them caters to a particular identity, the other caters to a particular identity in their social conservative front. Right? My question is, how is it that then this government is not doing what you say, that the systemic slander has sort of continued towards the Hindu identity or the Indic identity? How's that happened?
See, I think what we must realize is that a political discourse is perhaps the most expedient, convenient, myopic, and opportunistic discourse possible.
Right. Okay. The worst kind of game theory.
So I don't think it makes any sense to actually put all our eggs in the political basket. And the fact remains that even the political options which are available to the Indic side, and I certainly subscribe to that school of thought which believes that the right wing is not the word to be used for us, it is the Indic wing, and there is a very marked difference. It's not the same thing with a different name. There are serious differences which I hope to explain. The point is, I don't think this government or this establishment, even in its previous avatars, has had a very clear vision of what is the narrative with respect to Bharat that it wants to project within the country and outside the country. Okay. I think the last person to have that kind of civilizational clarity was the founder of the Bharatiya Janasangh, Shri Dr. Sama Prasad Mukherjee. And I don't think anybody after him has actually shared the same level of commitment, conviction, or clarity. Okay. And while they may have seen themselves as the alternative to the Congress establishment, while they may have seen themselves as the alternative to Nehruvian secularism or Nehruvian socialism, but the models, both economic and cultural, that they have adopted is vastly the same, largely the same. The symbolism might be different, the optics might be different, but in practical application and how it has worked on the ground, there is absolutely no difference whatsoever. And the clearest proof of that is that even this government believes that that it is under some kind of a pressure, either constitutional, political, or social, or whatever you call it, where it has to show a progress card ki humne minorities pe itne hazar crore kharch kiye hain. The moment you go down that path, you have not abandoned the majority minority nonsense, which is exactly what you continue to accuse the Congress of even under Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee. So the allegations that you hurled against the previous dispensation, it's thought is the very same path that you've chosen to tread. Okay. So the moment I see that, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Aap usko kuch bhi kahiye. This is how it effectively works on the ground, right? So I don't, and please tell me one thing. Why is it that a non-Muslim has not been appointed as a minority affairs minister so far under any of the BJP governments? Okay. There can be a non-Hindu, non-Muslim minority identity, but there is a policy continuum on this particular thing which the BJP doesn't want to be seen as deviating from, because you see they're also scared of, let's say, hurting minority sentiments. So the fear of the minority sentiment, which is what held the Congress ransom and hostage for several decades, is the very same fear that continues with the BJP. Therefore, I do believe that there is no change on the ground on those issues.
Don't you think it's a matter of optics not to like the minority, but to the people? The BJP is under serious, like a PR threat that they are anti-Muslim all the time, that they are anti-minority all the time. Would you not say that tokenization is to the effect of like, baith jao yaar, we are not that anti-Muslim? What do you think?
So iska matlab ye hai that you lack the fundamental confidence to actually change the narrative, and you have decided to actually stay consistent with the narrative. Okay. So admit that you lack the confidence. So then we'll take it. Then we'll say, fine, aapse itna hi ho paega. Okay.
So this confidence. Please. No, please. Second is more interesting. Right.
The second point is, according to me, the narrative, according to me, starts when you fundamentally believe that ये सही है या गलत है, उस पे बीजेपी पोजीशन नहीं लेना चाहती है. Okay? And आप कितना भी कुछ भी कर ले, आपको कोई अच्छा सर्टिफिकेट तो देने वाला नहीं है.
Right.
You've been in power since 2014. Right. You were in power from 98 to 2004. किसने आपको अच्छा प्रोग्रेस कार्ड बता दिया? हाँ भाई, आप भी सेक्युलर हैं हमारे हिसाब से.
Right.
Okay? ये ठप्पा तो आप पे कभी लगने वाला नहीं है. Okay? आप पे तो राष्ट्रवादी, फैसिस्टवादी, हरवादी का नाम लग चुका है. ठीक है, ये सब तो हो चुका है. सो आई एम बेसिकली सेइंग, इसके बावजूद आप 2 बार पावर में आ चुके हैं. ओके, एंड तादाद और भी ज्यादा हो गई है. द नंबर ऑफ सीट्स हैव इंक्रीज्ड. ओके, लेकिन आपके कॉन्फिडेंस पे कोई इस पे अंतर नहीं पड़ा है. ओके, सो नंबर्स आर नॉट द इशू. see, there is a beautiful dialogue from this movie Chariots of Fire that man can't put in what God has not. Okay, अगर आपके अंदर कॉन्फिडेंस नहीं है तो नंबर क्या कर लेगा? Okay, नंबर हो या ना हो, अगर कॉन्फिडेंस, that's why I always say that political strength is very different from political will. Sometimes political strength may not exist, but if political will exists, it compensates for lack of political strength. But if there is lack of political will, no amount of political strength can compensate for that particular void. It is fatal. It is fundamentally incurable because ये दिमाग में है, मानसिकता में है, मंशा में है, जो दिशा में दिख जाएगा.